Welcome to the podcast that explores mysterious disappearances, bizarre worldly occurrences, strange phenomenon, and basically everything that's weird. Welcome to the podcast, everything that's weird. We are your hosts, Anthony and Brandon, and tonight we are talking rapid fire. 50 mysteries, 50 states, although we're not going to get to 50 tonight. We're going to do 25, and then we're going to come back and do 25 more. And we're just going to go in alphabetical order.
And this is Reader's Digest has compilated their 50 unsolved mysteries from each state, and this is going to be like our hot takes on each one.
So some of these we're gonna just kind of say our opinion, and then some of them we may come back to for future episodes. There's a lot of them that are really interesting. Okay, so I used to know the state song, Alabama and Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, and all.
I was waiting for that.
Right, but I don't know it anymore. I'd have to look at.
Right.
I'd have to read the entire list of states with the lyrics to do it. But however, we're going to start with Alabama, and then we're going to end up in Missouri, and then our next episode will continue from there. So the first state is Alabama.
Yeah, and this sounds like an Alabama story all the way.
The Brasher Dye disappearance. So Billy Howard and the Dye brothers, they were Billy Howard and Robert. They disappeared in 1956 along with their cousin Dan Brasher. They were last seen leaving a relative's house in rural Jefferson County in 1947 in a green Ford, but no one noticed they were missing. And the reason was they were known to be heavy drinkers. Okay. Which I understand.
Right.
But by the time anything was filed or like there was actually a police report, there was no kind of evidence except for like urban legend.
Yeah, it's like they it's kind of funny because they said that when they were investigating this, they were met with a lot of awkward silence. Like people were real tight-lipped, or it was the complete opposite, and they were telling outlandish stories. I think it was like one way or the other. Either they were like, "I'm not saying a word." Just wait. I don't know if you remember what was it? There was an old cartoon back in the day where they kept calling them the revenuers, the tax people coming for the moonshiners.
Yeah, so
it's like you must be one of them revenuers. So it sounds like that.
And so a lot of people think this was maybe like a drug deal gone bad, because the drug at the time was alcohol.
Yeah, it was moonshine.
Right. So, I don't know enough about this one. I've read a little bit about it, but it happened a very long time ago.
Right.
There's zero evidence. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of like first, second, third hand accounts of what happened to them before they left. But other than that, that's kind of where they're at. I got nothing on this one.
Yeah, I mean, there's just like you said, it's old. There's not a lot to go by, and from all the stuff that I read that you see, it's a bunch of dudes that went out and got hammered on moonshine, and most likely drove their car off some fucking cliff. or something, or drove into a lake. Now, and I can tell you this: there's a real quick. There's like a guy on like YouTube that they do diving, and they locate people when the police can't find them. They call these people, and then they go around the local waterways and dive, and they've found hundreds of missing cases. Hundreds of them. I mean, like, and they're on point. They know how to do it, not touch the evidence, how to not disturb it, file it with the police. The police are either cooperative or they get all pissy because they solved the case. Find it. Yeah.
So there's another thing. They're on horseback called Texas Equisearch, and they're on horseback, and they go into places all over the country.
Yeah, rough country.
Yeah, and they go into rough country and they search where the people have been. So yeah, maybe this is one for them.
Yeah, I think in my mind, these guys are sitting at the bottom of a lake.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
They were running some shine. Got a little squirrely on the turn. They were trying to straighten the turns and flatten the hills, and it didn't work out for them.
You know, the reason that there's proofs on liquor is to know how much you're drinking, and back in the day that didn't exist.
Okay.
So maybe you got some bad shine.
Right.
You know? All right. So I don't know about that one. You're saying
I think it's nothing like crazy. It's just they can't find the location of the vehicle and they're all three dead.
Okay.
That's my working theory.
All right,
little evidence.
So
Alabama done. There you go,
Alaska.
Alabama.
Alaska.
Yeah.
Alaska's a really good one. We are going to do an episode of this one.
Got to.
We have to, because this one's good. So, Alaska is called the Investor Murders. And the Investor was a ship, and it was seen burning off the coast of a port in Alaska.
Coast of Craig.
The coast of Craig. And inside, there are 8 bodies.
Yeah.
The owner, his pregnant wife, their 2 daughters, and 4 crewmen. They've been shot to death, left to burn. And there was a suspect. However, he was acquitted.
Yeah, not only that they paid him. They gave him like $900,000.
He was acquitted twice.
Yeah.
He was acquitted. They tried him again.
Well, they had a deadlock jury the first time around, and then they acquitted him the second time around. And once they acquitted him, they were susceptible to, I guess, legal lawsuit. So he filed suit, and they had originally asked for an outrageous amount, but then it settled for $900,000. And
by the way, that's always how it happens.
And nobody would talk about it, like why they switched. But we'll get more in depth on this one, because I don't think there's a straightforward answer for this, and I think we got to do an episode on that one. So our hot take is to be continued. I think
that is a to be continued, because the guy that they originally charged with this and all the stuff that happened with this.
People, eyewitnesses. There was people seeing. They got some timelines there, and there's a lot going on.
All right, the next one we're gonna do an episode of this one too. This one is a murderer. His name is Robert Fisher in Arizona.
Yeah.
And he's wanted for the murder of his wife and 2 kids. And he blew up the house they lived in.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
blew it up.
On the run.
Yes. He disappeared the night of the fire, and he has not been seen since. There's talk of suicide.
This is amazing to me, because, like, as a white man, and you could, and I'm not going to get canceled for this, but, like, as a white man, you can't just hide out in Mexico. I know people are always like, you can go to Mexico, but they're like, hey, dude, Gringo lives on fucking 5th Street. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
there is no loyalty with
Yeah.
with the locals when you've killed your wife, especially in a Latin country where you've killed your wife and kids. Nobody's protected you.
Right.
So this one's very interesting to me because, like, okay, he's on the run, and everybody seems to think that he's either in Mexico or some kind of Central America company.
Yeah, well, if you're in
country.
Scottsdale and you're on the run, the logical place to go is Mexico. Like,
yeah, but he is so white, dude.
yeah,
Like, a lot of people think he's living in the wilderness, and which is.
But you could play up on that white thing. You could just like wear like Hawaiian shirts and a hat and a camera around your neck and act like a fucking tourist. And nobody's gonna give you the side eye because they all walk around there like that. But
that's a good point, actually. That's actually a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, there's sections of Mexico that are like just for American tourists. They're like just for American tourists, like whole towns that isn't real Mexican culture. It's
all right, but we're going to do this one because I would really like to visit this one and see what, where he could be, if there's any sightings of him or anything. So I'm undecided on this. I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind revisiting those two.
Yeah,
just
as
happened
far
those
as
are
like
back to back, but
just because it's like preliminary, I looked at it briefly. I did a little bit of research, but I haven't had. It's not like Maura Murray where I actually found a picture and I think I know where she is. This is just a guy that got away with it, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. We are on Arkansas. So Arkansas is the Gordon Lights.
Yeah. So ever since 1930, a floating light has appeared above the railroad tracks near Gordon, sometimes in late October. It's not in dispute whether the light appears because thousands of people have seen it. What remains a mystery is the cause of the light. Some people believe it's a ghost of William McLean, a railroad worker murdered in 1931. And others believe it's a natural phenomenon caused by swamp gas. You know, the old swamp gas reflecting off a weather balloon hit by the light of Venus. Of
course.
And because there's like a lot of quartz, I guess, there beneath the land. So there can be, multiple reasons for it. But for me, Arkansas is a natural phenomenon that because I think because you're dealing with light, it could be coming from multiple different places. It could be coming from one place really far away. You know what I mean? It's not like light doesn't have to appear right where the light source is. We know that from lasers and flashlights and all that stuff.
Okay. So we have this where we're from.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Oxford Lights.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in Oxford, Ohio, which is close to Miami University.
Right.
I have been pulled over by a cop in Oxford, Ohio, looking at the Oxford Lights in Miami of Ohio. So he said, "What are you guys doing?" And I said, "We heard that you can." Right? And it's like what you do when you're fucking a teenager.
All right, you fucking burnouts. Get out of the car. You're all under arrest. I know you're smoking weed.
He's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, all right, we heard that there's like Oxford Lights. And he's like, yeah. He was so mad. And I said, and we did see it. And so Oxford, Ohio, has the same exact thing.
Right.
And their tradition is that a motorcycle guy died and the ghost of his motorcycle light
Yeah.
comes towards you if you park at this certain place.
Yeah.
This is the 90s. We all knew this place.
Yeah.
We go there, we see it. We're like, there it is. That's look at that. And that's the light. And he's like, you dummies.
Mm-hmm.
He was. He said, that's what he said. You guys are dummies. This is like how cops talk to teenagers. He's like, you guys are dummies. All right. Do you know about light refraction? And we're like, no. He's like, all right, look, dude. There's several points of light because there's two highways coming together right here.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, that. So if you have a perfect amount of traffic,
yeah,
it looks like the headlights going northbound and going southbound are coming towards you.
Right.
That's all it is.
Right.
There's no Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, we had one where we had just for an example too, we had an incident where we were out in the woods somewhere up where we weren't supposed to be, you know, doing teenager stuff, and like lights kept fucking dancing through the woods and like just going back and forth across the woods, like brr, brr, back and forth, and we could not figure it out forever. And it wasn't until we were down in that area another time, and I was coming back up, and there was a bridge overpass from the road, like really far away from where we were in the woods, and it had those concrete sidewalls with the slot openings on the side.
Yeah. Right.
So every time cars went by, if you had two of them coming past each other on that bridge at the same time, they shine through there. Well,
that's exactly what he said.
It didn't hit anything until it got to that point. So it was like all of a sudden you'd see these, 5-6 foot tall strands of like, lines of light.
He was
crossing back and forth.
You won't see this at 4 a.m. because there's not enough traffic.
Right.
And he's like, get out of here.
Yeah. So I think that's what that is. I think that's an easy.
That's an easy one. I'm fine with that because that happened to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Cali.
Alcatraz. All right. Here's the thing. I've been to Alcatraz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've been to Alcatraz. I swam in the waters in Santa Monica, not San Francisco. San Francisco is colder than Santa Monica.
Mm-hmm.
However, I know a lot about this. The two brothers are from Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And they spent their whole life in the ocean.
Yeah.
They also, there's evidence that they sent letters from Argentina, right?
Yeah.
I think they made it.
Yeah, me too. I've always thought that this
was I'm a pretty good swimmer. I could do it.
I'm not so positive about the one guy.
The one guy, maybe not, but like I'm a good swimmer. Like, so I used to run all the time. And one night after our softball game, I wrestled a guy. And I thought I broke my leg. I ended up having a high ankle sprain.
Yeah.
And I couldn't run. So I started swimming. I couldn't run. That's why when I heard Mahomes had the high ankle sprain, I'm like, that's devastating.
Yeah.
But he didn't have a high ankle sprain. High ankle sprains are a real deal. They're like, it's like from mid calf to your mid foot, that doesn't work. So like, I had a bruise from all the way from my mid calf to my mid foot. And I couldn't even work. I was a bartender. Right. And if I turned, it was so extremely painful.
Yeah.
So I started swimming. And
Yeah, but it's not exactly fair to compare yourself to an NFL quarterback. It was like a Nate Bargatze joke when he was talking about how he got
I'm
up.
not comparing myself to him. I'm not saying.
He said he got up from watching the football game, and why he went to the fridge to get a beer. A guy on the team ran a touchdown on a kickoff. He goes, he ran 100 yards before I could do maybe 3 to 4. And he had 11 guys that really wanted to stop him. I didn't even have an ottoman in the way.
Fair. But all I'm saying is it's extremely painful.
Right.
I started swimming because I couldn't run. So I started swimming, and I would swim like 3 or 4 miles a week.
Right.
And I feel like I could do it. I went to Alcatraz. I actually did the tour. I know it's cold, but I feel like
but it's like one of those things where they say you can't, like they build a prison up as escape proof, and because they can't fathom that somebody would be able to pull that off, and that's like
it's not that far.
That's it isn't, and that's really the thing that people say about almost everything until somebody does it, and then you're like, oh, and then multiple people start doing it. You know what I mean? And then it's like
it's really not that far. Like you do have to take a ferry there. But there's several places you can stop. Like, even if you get pulled out to sea, you can stop at the Golden Gate Bridge.
Right.
So there's. I think they did it, especially a couple dudes from Florida that were like ocean based, and like knew how the ocean works. Like, yeah, that's a little bit different ocean than Florida, and it's colder. But like some Vaseline, there's some things you can do to like really change that, and we can do that one too. I wouldn't mind coming back.
Well,
to Alcatraz.
there's like you're saying about being able to swim well. I mean, there's cases like you got what are they called? The Baju people in Indonesia, where they live on the water all the time, right?
Right.
They are so apt at being in the water. They can hold their breath longer than most people. Like they're as a collective, like, you know what I mean? If you're doing an average for them, they can hold their breath longer than underwater. They can also see better underwater. Their eyes are different because of how much they're underwater, and they can see better underwater than you can normally. That's a really interesting story to get into. Look into those people, the sea gypsies they call them, and it's unbelievable. Yeah, unbelievable.
So like when you talk about like swimming and being in open water and all that stuff, they pitched it as it was shark-filled waters. Mm-hmm. It's not. There's sharks.
Yeah.
But it's not shark-filled. It's not Australia.
Right.
Like, this is 100% true.
Right.
They pitched it as it was like, oh, there's sharks everywhere.
That's what I hear every time when I hear about Alcatraz.
But it's not. It's actually not. Like, and like, even Santa Monica, when you surf, they always say, well, you're within 30 feet of a shark at any time. Okay, yeah, but it's so rough that they don't waste their energy getting to you. And even like, I know you're swimming and you're like, that's easy prey. You're not easy prey. Because sharks eat you, and that's it. But
so
like,
I think what we're saying is they made it, right? Like that's what we're saying.
I think they made it. I think they made it. Okay. I think they made it. All right, and I'm down to come back to that one. All right, so here we go. The Black Forest hauntings of Colorado. I got nothing for this. I don't believe in ghosts.
Well, I just think this was like it's really odd. So what happened is they got these people that moved into this house in the Black Forest area of Colorado, and they said all hell broke loose one night. And according to them, there was flashing lights, footsteps, orchestra music, strange smells, even sightings of ghostly faces. Now, this sounds like somebody went out in the woods and had a kick-ass party.
This is mass hysteria.
It's what it sounds like, doesn't it? Like,
right. Yes.
Like they were like, nobody could possibly be out here or something, and they just blew it off. But I've been up, and I tell you, we go up to Michigan, and up when you get up real far north in Michigan, they have a lot of really, really isolated back roads. They call them two tracks up there.
Yeah,
and because they were literally just two tracks. It's like two dirt strips or sand strips through the woods. And we went out with the locals back in the day when my brother was good friends with them, and they would drive for 40 minutes out into the middle of nowhere. You're just like you're in the middle of nowhere the entire time you're driving, and you're like, where the fuck are we going? And they're like, we're getting lost. And they get deep into the woods, bust out the chainsaws, cut down trees, make benches, and start a fire, and then just drink all night, cranking music. And they just do it out in the middle of fucking nowhere, man. And it's a great time, but that sounds like what happened to these people, and they just
I don't get this one at all. I actually looked at this one for a long time. I don't believe in ghosts, so I'm not saying ghosts don't happen. I'm just saying it's never happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, I don't think so either. We can move on to that one.
All right, so now the next one is actually kind of interesting. It's the Connecticut shallow graves of New Haven.
Yeah, beneath the New Haven Green.
So because of Hurricane Sandy, there was like
a tree fell down,
and it exposed the human skull.
The skull was in the roots of the tree when the tree turned over, so they could see it in the roots.
Right, and then they end up unearthing a bunch of bodies, right?
Yeah, and I don't even know if unearthing's like the correct call on that, because most of it was like 2 foot deep. That's why that was the shallow graves, because they find these at like 2 foot deep. But it was like said it's that they suspect that there's more than 5,000 bodies buried underneath that green.
So this to me is very easy. This is an epidemic.
That's what it seems like to me too. I mean, that's what the working theories are, because they're like,
this is like a bunch of people
wrapped in
died from
sheets
something
and stuff like that, and
unmarked graves. I don't know, whatever they died from, diphtheria or whatever. I don't know. I don't know at the time what was going through the town.
Yeah, these bodies are from several hundred years ago.
Right, and something happened where a bunch of people died at once. COVID, right?
Well, even when I was up in Dayton, and I was at one of the cemeteries up there, and we were doing some work up there, and you look around. I was just looking at some of the headstones, and I noticed that like this whole section had like the same death date, and they were random ages all over the map as far as ages go. So we got curious, and we went back and looked it up, and one of the worst floods in the country that's ever happened up in Dayton. Did you know that? And it was back when whatever date this was, 1912 or something like that. And so there was a ton of people that died from a flood. So that cemetery, is, along with many others, have a lot of the same death date on their headstones, or even like a year later or so, that were from like exposure and all that stuff, and eventually succumbing to infection and shit like that. So yeah, it's pretty crazy, but this isn't hard to get. I mean, it's from the 1700s. There's a shit ton of people buried hastily in one spot. I think that tells you all you need to know. There was some kind of breakout that they decided to bury them all real quick.
So this is another one. Delaware, Jane Pritchard.
Yeah.
So Jane Pritchard was like a botanist, and she was known for like going into the woods. And then she died, and she was shot in the back. But a lot of people think she was killed by this one guy that she met there that somebody saw her talking to.
Yeah.
I don't know about this one.
Yeah, she was shot in the back with a shotgun.
Right.
So there's a lot of people talking about a hunter's mistake, and because there's a lot of hunters in the area, but not with a shotgun. If you told me it was a rifle, I'd be like, yeah, maybe, you know. But with a shotgun, you got to get pretty up close and personal.
But it's weird, and maybe this is one we can do.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know a lot about this one, except that somebody saw her talking to this guy. They have like a sketch, but he doesn't fit any like people that have a license or, you know, are there around that time.
Yeah, and in the sketch, the guy's eyes are really big and far apart. It's really weird.
They are. They're very far apart.
She was, yeah, like I said, I think she was found by, I think, hikers, but they were other people, hunters that had, it was hunters that actually saw her talking to somebody.
Right.
So apparently it is pretty heavily trafficked with hunters, but, you never know. I mean, I don't know if she's a botanist. Maybe she was like a peace loving hippie type, and maybe she pissed off one of those hunters.
Why?
She might have been saying shit to him, like if she came across them and be like, "You're a fucking murderer. You kill animals."
And he kills her.
And if it gets heated enough, and the guy's out in the fucking middle of nowhere, and he knows if he shoots her in the fucking back, tells her shut the fuck up, walks away, and nobody is ever gonna catch him. You know, it obviously worked. If that's the case,
I guess.
So, you know, some people are
sociopaths,
man. Some people are sociopaths that none of that doesn't affect them at all. So
I got nothing on her.
I don't either. It's an odd death. It doesn't make a lot of sense because she's out in the woods by herself, right, with doing botany stuff, and she gets a shotgun blast to the back. It sounds personal, but then again, like I said, you can pick. I've seen enough of the first 48 to know that sometimes people just get pissed off.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, the first 48's got a lot of murders that were just like, the motherfucker's talking shit. You know, it was just like easy as that. It was like, fuck, you killed him for that, you know. So,
all right, Florida. We're in Florida right now.
Right.
This
one deserves. I don't know. I don't know if you can do a show on it because there's not a lot to talk about it, but it does deserve some recognition because for me, this one it happened.
This is spontaneous combustion,
and I think it happened.
She was a smoker.
No way. Not 3,000 degrees.
I know, but listen. What I've heard is that under the perfect conditions and the right amount of body fat, burn like a candle.
Yeah, I don't know though, man. I mean, it burned her like
everything.
So
was
what
burned
they said
but
is that she was entirely cremated except for that one foot. It's like above the ankle down or something like that. Last time I saw a picture, I haven't seen the picture in a while. But there's
not a whole lot of other cases of spontaneous combustion.
Not like this one. She was alone in her apartment. She was sitting in the chair, and her body was almost entirely cremated, which that right there is very hard to do with you just
And
catching on fire. You
what
would
I've
go out
always-
before it would burn your bones to ash.
What I've always heard was that she, in this particular case, burned like a candle. And then it's terrible to say. But that she had like the right amount of fat
Mm-hmm.
and it was the right amount of fuel to burn everything with a cigarette.
Yeah,
to start the fire.
I've heard that too, but I've also heard from people that cremate bodies and that they got to look at it, and they said this would take, and it says it on the little description even, 3 hours of burning at 3,000 degrees. That's how they cremate bodies. 3 hours.
But how long was she
degrees.
burning?
There's no way you can get to that temperature.
How long was she burning?
I don't know.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. It's all, she could burn for 12 hours. It doesn't mean that her bones are going to disintegrate and cremate.
Yeah, bones disintegrating are a whole other.
That's a different animal, man. That's a blazing hot fire that I don't think the fat in your body could create.
Right.
And here's the thing: she couldn't have been burning too long. There was things around her that were flammable that were not on fire.
She was sitting in her rocking chair or her
right, and the chair was mostly still intact, and there was a pile of newspapers next to her body.
Yeah,
unburnt. So this was like flash, super hot, intense fire, really quick, and it went out before it caught the whole place on fire. So she couldn't have been burning that long, and it had to be intensely hot and had to be intensely quick. So I think this is unexplained spontaneous combustion. I just don't think we have an answer for that. I think she did spontaneously combust.
Yeah, I don't have anything for this.
I think it's true. I think she did spontaneously combust. Why? I have no idea.
The Bleeding House of Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I just don't care. I don't think this is real.
Every time I hear these weeping, statues, bleeding statues and stuff, I think people, they exaggerate the truth. They might have saw some droplets of water on the eyes of a statue and call it tears, and you see something else and you call it blood and blah blah blah. But I don't know. It wasn't from a person. It was blood that wasn't from a person. So for all I know, they had like a rat in the house that got fucking cut on a splinter or something and went around bleeding around the house and then left,
Yeah, I got nothing on this one.
I think there ain't nothing going on in Georgia if this is your story.
I agree.
They said it was everywhere. It was oozing from the walls and the floor, seeping up from the kitchen appliances. She and her husband called the police, who found no evidence of break-in, and they were able to surmise that the blood had not come from a living human. No one had ever figured out where or whom blood came from. But, I don't think it's... Yeah, I think it's fucking a nothing burger.
Yeah, me too. The next one was the Hawaii.
Yeah.
Lisa Al. And I would like to do this one.
Okay.
This one was, she's 19. She disappeared. And there's a lot on this, actually. There's a trial. There's testimony. But, they never get to the bottom of who it is.
Yeah, they couldn't even figure out how she died, right?
Right. So, I like this one a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea who it is. Apart from, they think that she might have been targeted by a policeman.
Oh, wow.
So, during this time, somebody, and because it's the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
there's no body cams or anything like that. A policeman was kind of, whether it was a real policeman or a fake policeman, had kind of like pulled over a bunch of girls and made them do stuff. This kind of seems like that.
Yeah, I think I saw something too when I was kind of looking into it about they think she might have been targeted by a guy pretending to be a police officer.
Right. So if it's not a real police officer, it's at least somebody trying to fake that they are a police officer.
They're always quick to say it was somebody impersonating a police officer.
Oh, of course. Not a real one. Not a real one.
No. You wouldn't. Real police officers don't do that. They don't murder.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all.
That might be worth a revisit, though. I mean, that one's a decent story. We could come back to that if you wanted to on a show, but
I would love to do that one. Idaho.
Yeah, you know what happens in Idaho?
Strange mutilations of farm animals. That's easy. That's UFOs.
Yeah, it's definitely aliens.
I don't even know if we need to make any. Do we need anything else?
I love that they put human, cattle, and deer, the genitals removed, bodies drained entirely of blood, and no discernible footprints or other forensic evidence left at the scene. And okay. Picture this. You got mutilated cows with their testicles cut off and all their blood drained out. Do you send in NCIS?
No.
You don't. You send the local fucking yokel. He comes over, pokes it with a stick, calls it wolves, and leaves. I don't think.
So there was a guy that it was investigating chupacabras. And he's like, there's no chupacabras. And he's like, there's bullflies. Do you know what they are? And they're like, no. He's like, bullflies eat blood, and they surgically remove soft tissues from like livestock. They're the first wave of carnivores.
Huh.
Yeah, and ever since I heard that, that's what I always think.
Yeah.
With mutilation.
Right.
Because why are they going after cows? When they have done humans, I get that.
Yeah.
But like, why cows?
Right. Yeah. Why cows? I mean,
right.
You don't. It's only to livestock that you see it happening. Like it seems like, right? Right, it's not. It's not like there's like big masses of wildlife or herds of gazelle or something that are missing their balls. It's
cows.
It's always cows, and it's always in some rural area.
Right.
So it sounds more like you're saying, like a localized thing, like where you would have this would live or exist in this area, but not other places. So you don't get those example in other places. So if you're talking about like a fly, like you said, it may only have a range that's so big, so it only affects these. So it's like, well, there's a lot of animals that live with other animals on purpose because they either feed off them or they cohabitate with them, So I don't know. Like you in Florida, if you see cattle egrets. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
exactly.
So it's one of those things that I think this is it's a natural phenomenon that we haven't been able to pin down yet. Because I don't want to like, if I'm gonna finally say yes, aliens have visited, yes, they've come here, I don't, it's one of those things. We've done this in a few other stories where it's like that's super disappointing if that's what they're here for. You know what I mean?
It's like, be better. Be
maybe,
better.
it's like somewhere like you remember we did the story with the alien that ate shit out of his hip.
Yeah.
What if he just had like a big supply of cow balls in his hips, and that's what sneaking out at night and mutilating cattle and coming back, and he's like, "Yeah, I just make this shit out of my hip." It's really him storing cow balls.
Yeah, I'm fine with that one. Like,
yeah, I think it's a natural phenomenon that occurs on. I get it. I think natural phenomenons get played on by hoaxers. You know what I mean? If something happens and we think it's bizarre, and then we attribute it to something that's unreal.
That one like sheriff like set up shop, and he's like, "It's blowflies, dude." Hey, that's what it is.
Yeah,
it's like these certain amount of flies. They come in, they eat all the blood.
because people can't fathom that they could do that, but
right.
There's creatures out there that can do it, and
that's
especially
what
if they swarm.
Do. Right. All right. Illinois, the Mad Gasser of Mattoon.
Right.
I'm gonna chalk this up to it's the 1940s. Come on, man.
Those people were crazy all the time. Like the mass hysteria happened to them all the time because they were like. I think it was like the first, because you got to figure the 40s were when, when you first started like mass communicating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like every fucking thing came out of the woodwork, and it's like, it could be this. And it's like, it could be this. Because did you hear about this happening over here? And nobody's associating that. It's like, no, that's regional. You're not going to be affected by that. You know what I mean? And they kind of overdid everything, it seemed like. It's like, even if you see old advertisements, they're always like this scare tactic. Don't be caught off guard by this, or what's in your house that could kill you, and
and like if you have
the Japs are coming.
Like if you have somebody that's like hip to what like new gases are out, I mean, he could rain havoc. Right.
Okay, so what the story is in the 40s, the law enforcement received 24 cases of gassings, and the victims reported paralysis, coughing, nausea, and vomiting, and the smell of strange noxious odor in their home. No physical evidence was ever found. However, the victims always survived. Some believe the attacks were a case of mass hysteria. And I mean, this could just been like bad gas lines run,
It could have been.
That where the gas could escape, and then something happened like a hard rain sealed the ground up with mud, and it didn't escape through that part anymore. You know what I mean? It could easily be, or it could be natural gas that's in the ground that evacuated and it's gone now. That pocket is gone, or it could just be plain old mass hysteria.
Yeah, I have nothing on this one. I don't know. Like, it could be somebody just playing a prank on somebody. It could be somebody with like some kind of sinister plot.
Yeah, like I said, it was back in the beginning of like mass communication. So
it's the 40s, dude.
You got sick, and they were like, "Oh my God, I'm feeling a little cough and wheezing. I bet I got gas too."
It's the 40s.
Yeah, that's the 40s was like that, man. I think they once they hear something, and they were like, "Oh, it's affecting me too," and it's I think that's easily a mass hysteria thing.
All right, so the next one is Indiana, the fire poltergeist. I don't believe in ghosts, so
yeah, this one's weird. It's 1941. A farmer in Odin had breakfast with his family and then headed out to his barn to begin his chores. Then he noticed smoke coming from the upstairs window of his house. He ran back, got help from the volunteer fire department to put out the fire upstairs in the bedroom, only to have another fire break out in another room. All day long, as soon as they put out one fire, another one would start elsewhere in the house. 28 in all. Believing his house was haunted by a poltergeist, the farmer tore it down and built a new one. The cause of the fires was never determined, and that's that. I eat.
Yeah, I don't believe this.
I think you had a house with faulty wiring.
Right.
That's what I think you had.
You had a bad electrician.
It was the 40s, man. Again.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Like I don't believe in that. That one, I don't even know.
No, I think it was
I have no opinion. I have zero opinion.
Something. And because I mean, from the lore of poltergeists, I don't think tearing the house down and rebuilding it in the same spot would get rid of your poltergeist. According to lore, I don't think that works like that.
Me either.
So even if we were going to believe that, it's whatever.
All right, the next one I do want to look at. The boy with no appetite.
Yes, it's Iowa.
So he had a bacterial infection in his left lung ever since. He's never felt hunger or thirst.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he only eats and drinks because he's reminded to do so.
He doesn't need it, which is crazy.
It's super weird. I mean, and this isn't an old story. This isn't an old story at all. This is from 2013. Yeah.
Right.
So.
And it makes me wonder, like, what's going on with him? Like, to not need it is weird.
Right. Yeah, he's in his early 20s now, right? I mean, that's what he would be. I think he was 12 when it happened. He's like 20 something, 21 or something right now. 2021.
I was trying to look to like follow up on him, but that's one we need to look at later.
Now I want to look at it because is this really a medical case or is this a stubborn ass kid? You know what I mean?
Well, I put it in my notes. My son.
Yeah.
My son doesn't. My son doesn't eat at all, and I was like, they should do a study on him because he's the kid that doesn't eat, and like he's still alive.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So like, it's weird that like some kids have to eat all the time, but he, like my daughter had to eat all the time. But my son was like, he only eats like 3 things. He eats like chicken dinosaurs.
Yeah.
He eats like Captain Crunch, and who eat like Reese Cups. That's it. That's all he eats.
Right. But he's still feeling hunger pains, you know what I mean? He's like
right, exactly, right.
Yeah.
He's still eating.
Now they got a comparison of him. They had him from his last year, like from the year that they were writing this story, which was like 2013 or I think we said 14. Sorry about that. You might have to edit that out. My cat was digging in the silverware drawer.
It's all good.
Like the worst thing it could be doing. Why is it still doing it? Hold on. Sorry. Anyway, okay. Let's start that again. So they got a side-by-side picture of him. And he was in school, he weighed 104 pounds. And the next year, he weighs 68.4 pounds.
This guy from Iowa.
So that's like, there's really something going on there. You know what I mean? You'd get hungry at some point. So it's super weird. And you would imagine that it would be an issue because it's hard to even fathom like not getting hungry.
Right.
But I feel like I've done stuff where like I get busy and I completely forget to eat. But at some point it catches up with me. You know what I mean? There's going to be some point where I'm like, I haven't eaten in a while. I am starving. You start feeling weird, you know? So it's a really weird story.
Yeah, even when I work and I'm just like locked in or whatever, I'm like, yeah, I need to eat, man. I need to
Mhm.
eat, like, because I either start making mistakes or, uh, like you just start getting the pains. So it's weird that somebody like wouldn't get that.
Yeah, and there's like it could be easily a undiscovered um, condition that's never been medically, um, discussed before, but or I guess discovered. But it could also be like multiple things from what I hear. Like it could be like this a condition that they don't know about, but it might occur in multiple, more people, but it's combined with something else like this lung infection that
Right.
creates a perfect storm.
All right.
So
So we don't know about that one.
yeah,
We
and I don't
may
think
have to.
I don't think there's
We
ever going
may,
to be a real answer to that, but yeah, it's a very interesting story.
the next one, I am interested in this one. He went to a graduation party in Kansas. I guess it's Randy
Randy Leak or Leach, one or
Leach.
the other.
All right. So he went to a graduation party, and he's like a big dude.
Yeah,
And then he's just missing.
yeah, he's like he's like a big guy, right?
6'2".
Yeah, but he was like bulky too, right? He was like
Yep. And, I mean, you're 6'4".
yeah,
I'm 6'1". Nobody's just taking us.
yeah,
Like, we don't get kidnapped,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
We have those shirts that say "hard to kidnap."
yeah. You're gonna be even the chloroform would be like the worst mistake too, because you'd be like,
right.
shit, now I gotta carry him.
Yeah, like, it's true though. Like, when you're that big, you need people. Like, so this guy went to this graduation party, although there's no crazy stories, nothing as far as I've seen. Where like, people have an opinion of what happened or whatever. They're just like, he was there and he was gone.
Yeah. I love it. This is the reoccurring thing. It was like there was rumors of a satanic cult activity in the county,
but
days
that was
before.
like in the late 80s, early 90s, satanic panic.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the thing with the I don't know if I'm setting the record straight, but with like a satanic cult, they're not like, we're gonna go murder people. That's not what they're doing. It's more about the like the witchcraft of the arcane, and it's not we have to blood sacrifice human beings all the time. So it's like the ridiculousness that they're just going around and kidnapping people for satanic rituals. It's a little goofy. If there's somebody out there, like, if they're doing weird shit and they're calling themselves satanic, those are fucking people playing dress up.
So I agree. I 100% agree.
Right.
So this is one I'd like to come back and do.
Yeah, it deserves a look outside that satanic bullshit.
The next one is not. It's the Kentucky meat showers. All right.
This is so old that there's no way anything about it you could fucking take as Bible, But yeah, go ahead.
So apparently, this lady saw the Kentucky meat showers. They were in a farm in Kentucky. What Reader's Digest says, the sky rained down chunks of meat. And nobody knew where it came from. And then when I did like some further investigation, Um, there was this lady, Miss Crouch, and she was making soap on her porch, and she saw chunks of meat coming down.
Yeah, but I think it's important to note that this was in 1876.
Right.
This was 1876. Just for reference, slavery was only abolished like, I don't know what, 13 years prior.
Yeah, I got nothing on this one.
I mean, it's so what people are saying is that it was like it was one day in 1876 over a farm in Kentucky that the sky rained down chunks of meat in indeterminate origin.
And they were saying like it was like turkey vultures that all at the same time.
Yeah, but well, it's not uncommon. Vultures and scavengers, and you've probably everybody has at some point seen a dead animal either on the side of the road, or if you watched it on a nature show where the vultures are all around it picking the bones clean. And it's after, if in our area there's no large predators or anything like that would be sitting over the carcass, so that's kind of themselves. But either way, when they crowd that carcass, and it's like, get in, get as much as you can before the bigger, badder birds steal it, So they do gorge themselves. They just eat and eat as much as they can. So it's not uncommon that vultures vomit because they go over and gorge themselves. So if there was like a large kill in Kentucky, I'm thinking, I don't know if, and back then animal populations were different, that if there was bears up there maybe or something that would have threatened them, their kill, they would have gorged as much as they could. And if you had a large group of vultures doing it and they got chased off from their kill and they all scattered in a panic, you could see where they could like vomit and meat would fucking come down, chunks of meat would come down from the sky. Now, how much? It was probably an exaggeration. It was probably like, it wasn't probably actually just raining meat. It was probably like a bunch of chunks of meat and shit fell from the sky.
But how else does it get up there?
It's got to be vultures,
right?
I think that's all it was vultures got up there and they puked. This, like I said, this is old as shit.
We're not revisiting this one.
Kentucky, you suck. Do better with your mysteries, man.
Right. Louisiana. Marie Laveau?
Who right now on Louisiana does not know what road this is going down.
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, so Mary Laveau lived in New Orleans at the turn of the 19th century, and she was a charmed, titillated, and unnerved the community with her practices of voodoo. Laveau told fortunes and created potions and charms on request. She held spiritual ceremonies and led people to becoming possessed. She also could magically heal the sick. However, stories of her feat had passed along from one generation of voodoo practitioners to the next, making it impossible to know the truth behind the tales. And I think this is every story in New Orleans.
Yes, I agree.
So me and the wife went to New Orleans. We did
I love New Orleans.
We went to a cruise. We were doing a cruise, and it was leaving out of New Orleans, and so we went down a day early so that we could hang out in New Orleans. And we actually ended up getting so drunk so quick that we went back to our Airbnb and passed out while it was still light out.
I love New Orleans, but I think it's built on mystery.
It's every street corner's got a woman like this,
Yeah, right. Yeah, I agree. So. All right, I'm good with that one.
Yeah.
All right, so Maine.
Mm-hmm. Another old one. What happened to Sarah Ware?
So this one, the neighbor did it, right? Right?
Yeah.
The neighbor did this one.
Right.
Sarah Ware, she was beaten and was discovered in a wooded area of Buck Spot.
Mm-hmm.
She had been missing for 2 weeks. Her killer is believed to be her neighbor, but the bloodstained hammer believed to be the murder weapon disappeared. The neighbor was acquitted. The neighbor did it, dude.
Well, the evidence disappeared, and that's how he got acquitted.
Right.
So
he did
it. And here's the kicker right there. You're like, well, evidence doesn't just be well, it does in 1898.
Right.
You could probably fucking break in easily and steal whatever evidence they had. And really back then it was like, do you recognize this hammer? And be like, yeah, I've seen that hammer. Obviously he killed her. You know,
right.
That was their hard evidence back in 1898. It's not like they could be like, we tested the blood and it was your blood, you know?
Right.
So, I mean, it could have just been on his property and they're like, you're guilty, even though it wasn't him. There's, you know, it's 1898 justice back then. So the neighbor did it.
All right. Maryland House of Horrors. He hired this guy to build fucking, this is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Tunnels under his house.
Yeah.
And then that guy dies building the tunnels.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody knows why he's building the tunnels.
Mm-mm. The guy who died probably did. That's probably why he's dead.
But when he dies, they're like, well, all he did was hire him to build the tunnels. So, manslaughter?
Yeah. Yeah, probably accidental death, and then he tried to hide it.
So he got manslaughter.
Right.
6 years.
Yeah. So this was 2017. It was the Bethesda house fire revealed the bodies. That's when they found out there was tunnels in the basement that went all the way to the road and stuff like that. It was kind of crazy.
Right?
Yeah. He had hired Askaya Kafra, right? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
To dig these tunnels, but put him in danger due to the unsafe work environment.
And his name's Daniel Beckwith.
Yeah, and it sounds like he was taking advantage of him and having him do these tunnels. I think he wanted to. He found somebody that he wanted to dig these tunnels, and then he was going to off him so that nobody knew about his tunnels. You know, I think you think. Have you ever thought about this? Like,
no,
like if you're like, you see these like when you see on movies where they have like super secret bases and super secret underground stuff. Somebody had to fucking build that. They didn't build that with their hands.
I like Lex Luthor.
Yeah. So what do you do with the people that build it? You have to fucking kill them all, right? So like,
it's nothing.
Where does Batman bury the bodies? Because there's no way that motherfucker built that on his own. You know what I mean? He didn't build the
By the way,
cave
did
on
you
his
see
own.
that Batgirl? It was so bad that they had to kill the project and take it as a tax loss. No, seriously, it tested so bad.
Right. Well, it's one of them things, man. It's like, I don't want to get us canceled, but and the vagina to some doesn't make it. It's and it's not sexist if people don't like it. It's you come up with an original story.
Right.
Quit changing the characters. Just come up with a fucking original story, and people will watch it and buy it, man. I mean,
agreed.
There's so many proofs out there of that occurring, but you've got a good original story, which just made it even funnier that Jennifer Lawrence did that whole thing where she said she was like breaking the glass ceiling when she was like, at the time I made Hunger Games, there weren't any female leads in any movies. It was, and it's like all these women, Sigourney Weaver, coming out of the woodwork, like, yes, we would like to thank her. He was like, if it wasn't for her, I would have never been able to make the Alien movies.
Right.
And it's not like that, man. Write a fucking original story. People will watch it. People watch the Hunger Games. It was an original story. It had nothing to do with you being a fucking woman. It didn't. And it wouldn't, if it bombed, it would have had nothing to do with you being a woman. You had an original
Nothing.
story. If the story was good, and
It
people were going to watch it.
it was a terrible story. That's what's wrong.
Yeah, when your movie bombs, it's because it's terrible. It's because you made a bad movie.
Nobody
and
cares.
If it's an old movie that you redid and you change the characters, that's why it bombed. You know, people fall in love with those characters and the idea and the image of them, and they don't want to fucking with them. So, it's one of those things. That shit pisses me off to no end. But anyway, I digress.
All right. So,
Massachusetts.
Now Massachusetts, Daniel Beckwith.
No, you already did the Maryland House of Horrors. That was the Daniel Beckwith. I think we said you just killed him.
Sorry.
Yeah.
The Black Flash in Provincetown. Yeah, Provincetown. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. This one. I don't know. I got no notes on this. So what do you have? What are you thinking?
So you're talking about a shadow, right? Okay, so here's the story from 1939 to 1945. The people of Provincetown were terrorized by a being they called the Black Flash. The figure would first appear to a group of children, tall.
Is this Slender Man?
It's like Slender Man, tall, dressed in black, and growling ominously. In 1945, a group of policemen actually reported seeing the figure leap a 10-foot fence. About a month later, a man threw boiling water at the figure, sending it screaming into the night, which is probably some poor homeless guy. He's fucking burned up in the face right now. But anyway, because you start that hysteria, and then they do dumb shit to poor innocent people. I think anybody that came off as a dark, ominous figure was probably considered the Black Flash. From what I understand, it's just sightings of fucking dark imaged people. I think the tall, dressed in black, growling ominously at a bunch of children is, maybe a bum.
Yeah,
I don't know, or something, or a hobo. So it's the 40s again. I don't trust that era.
And then the next one's the same thing. Michigan with the Paulding lights.
Yeah.
That's the Oxford lights again.
Yeah, same thing. Michigan, they want it to be paranormal, blah blah blah. But so we'll read it out just so everybody knows. In 1966, a group of teens reported having seen mysterious lights above the Valley of Paulding. Scientists' explanations, such as swamp gas, of course, rejected in favor of the more popular paranormal theories. The light from a lantern belonging to a local brakeman who was killed was once attempting to stop an oncoming train. But it's all the same thing, like we talked about before. This is mysterious lights and people putting a story to it.
The next one's interesting, though.
Really weird.
The Frozen Girl.
Yeah, really weird.
Because I do know that, okay, so I was listening to Dateline. I listen to Dateline a lot. And they have, it's murder mysteries, mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy was arguing that he couldn't have killed the person that was in the story.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, why not? He's like, well, because you said she was killed 6 months ago. And they're like, okay. And she's been missing for how long? And he's like, 5 years. And he's like, I told you she was alive. And they're like, unless you froze her, and he's still in jail.
Yeah.
So this girl, she She for sure was frozen.
Yeah, it was severely frozen.
Solid.
They could not.
What they said.
Yeah, so in 1981, Jean Hillard's car went off the road near Langby, and the next day, her frozen body was discovered. Her eyes wide open, her flesh frozen so solid that doctors couldn't pierce it with a hypodermic needle. Her body temperature was too low to register on their thermometers. But when Hilliard thawed, she was very much alive and made a full recovery, which is insane, because one of the biggest problems that happens with why they can't like cryogenically freeze people and stuff like that is because this has to be some mystery of that perfect storm of what happened to her. But what happens is your blood, it freezes and your blood vessels, they burst because, you know, when it's just like your pipes, when we get water in your pipes and it expands, the ice expands and it blows the pipe. Well, that does that to your blood vessels. So it ruptures all your blood vessels. So you're dead without being dead yet. So as soon as you thaw out, you're done. You're all your blood vessels have popped. You got red in your eyes and blah, blah, blah. But this did not happen to her. The guy that found her was her car broke down, right? And she had got out of the car and she was walking to a neighbor that she knew's house. And on her way there, she had like gotten dizzy and fell down. Like, it was Minnesota. Right. And it was super cold out. And I think they said it was like below zeros, 20 below that night, which is crazy. And she had crawled all the way. She had like actually got down on the ground and was crawling at some point and crawled and fell down like near his house. And when he found her, he was like, he thought she was dead. And when he got close, he could hear her making noise, like she was wheezing, breathing. Right. So he took her to the hospital, right? And then they went to go start an IV, and they couldn't even get the needle into her arm. She was so solid, frozen.
Jesus. And I've heard of this a couple times, not just with her. So I don't think this is so much a mystery as this. We just don't know
how she pulled it off, like how she survived.
We don't know all the parameters of like freezing them, basically.
Yeah.
All right.
They had all been out drinking and dancing. I mean, there's not a lot to say about it. She froze and then thawed out, and it's really weird. Yeah, Fireball. Yeah, Fireball, keep you warm. It's got that formaldehyde in it.
Yeah, right.
It keeps you alive, keeps you fresh.
Okay, the next one.
I do recommend it for everybody to go back and just like read that story because it's pretty amazing. I don't know if it's really what you'd call mystery.
It's not really.
It's not for us.
It's like a crazy survival.
It's a medical mystery, but it's not real. There's not a lot to, but it is fascinating as shit because all the times that we talk about cryogenics and trying to do it, we've never pulled it off, and she did it accidentally.
Right.
So anyway.
The next one is Mississippi. The Phantom Barber of Pascagoula. Is that it? All right, this one.
Pascagoula.
Yeah. Come on.
Okay, this is stupid. How dumb. Mississippi, get some better stories. In 1942, Pascagoula was plagued by a series of particular home invasions where the intruder took locks of hair from each of the people whose home he broke into.
Right.
Although one man became a suspect, he was never formally charged and passed a lie detector test. No one has ever figured out who the Phantom Barber really was. Now, with the lie detector test, we've talked about that, and you don't ever take a lie detector test and all that stuff. Right. But the thing is one thing you have to realize is that if this dude was cuckoo bananas and maybe he had multiple personalities, you'd pass a lie detector test if you had the other personality out. So I think that's if I'm guessing, this dude was off his rocker, off his meds, multiple personalities. He actually was the one doing it. He passed the lie detector test because his personality at night wasn't the one that was taking the lie detector test.
Yeah, I don't care. Like that one to me doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Yeah. But the next one does.
Mm-hmm.
The next one's really interesting. A guy from Missouri died of AIDS in 1967.
69.
69, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was hospitalized in 1969.
Okay, so he dies of AIDS 1969, which is a full 10 plus years before the first reported AIDS case.
Yeah.
I've always believed AIDS was generated.
Mm-hmm. To kill the gays or blacks.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I've heard them all. Like
both.
Yeah, probably both. If it was manufactured, it wouldn't surprise me at all if that was.
Well, I know for a fact crack was like.
Yeah.
So like crack. So coke was okay. The Carters had their kids had drug problems, and they were like, shit, if our kids have drug problems, everybody has drug problems. He was actually really smart about this, and he's like, and I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, just throw that out there, but he's like, if our kids have drug problems, everybody has drug problems.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. And like to this day, 80% of dollar bills have like cocaine traces on them.
Most of them. Did you ever see the Mythbusters where they tested it? That's crazy. They actually tested this because they got the story of the guy that won. He hit a jackpot in Las Vegas, right?
Okay.
And he gets all the money cashed out, and he puts it in a duffel bag, right? He's driving back home with this duffel bag full of cash. And as he's driving back home, he gets pulled over by the police. He's acting suspicious, but he was acting suspicious because he had a shit ton of money in the back and no proof that he won it. So he was nervous. So they call in, they think he's on drugs. So they call in the drug dogs. The drug dog does a walk around the car and hits. And when they go and search his car, they find the bag of money. The dog hits on the bag of money. They charge him with possession and take him in. And they cannot locate the drug. And they determine that the cocaine was on the money. And they tried to charge him for the cocaine that was on the money. And the court, his lawyer proved that money from it, and he took money from, and this is the urban legend. Like, there's no proof that this story actually happened. According to urban legend, the lawyer got money from different people in the courtroom. He borrowed $1 here, borrow $1 there, and put it in a baggie in front of him, and he'd send it away for analysis and say your money came back with cocaine on it. Mm-hmm. And that's how he won the case. So that was the urban legend, or something to that extent, right? And so Mythbusters does a show on it, and they said, we want to see if this is real. So they tested bills, and they're like, yeah, this tested positive for cocaine. Every bill they tested, everybody got out their money. They tested positive. So they started going around to stores and getting cash back as change, testing it, tested positive for coke. They went to an ATM and got nearly brand new bills out of the machine. And they tested positive for cocaine. It's like nearly every bill has a trace amounts of cocaine on it. But since this guy had so much money, it was like a lot of cocaine enough that the dog hit on it.
Right.
So, but that is definitely true. But anyway,
but this was a
16-year-old kid that was hospitalized. So the weird part about this is that he had never received any blood transfusions or anything like that. He'd never been out of the country.
Yeah, but this goes to like COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they invented AIDS. They invented AIDS. They invented crack.
Mm-hmm.
They did.
Yeah.
They just did. I don't know. Like, there's multiple reports of like CIA agents saying like giving cocaine to like inner city dealers and teaching them how to make crack. There's a guy in jail in Michigan for life for this. Like, yeah, this is one of those ones I'm like.
So you think he was like ground zero?
They introduced something. Yeah. Yeah, man, I'm sorry.
He was a black kid, right?
Yeah, that's what happened, man. They introduced it. And it sucks. It sucks because you don't want to be a part of that culture, but that is what happened, dude. They introduced AIDS. AIDS didn't come from a fucking monkey. There's no monkeys with AIDS. They don't have
fucking COVID didn't come from them eating bats.
Right. They don't have an AIDS monkey epidemic.
Yeah.
To this day, they still don't have. They've already thrown out the monkey thing. They've already said it's not for monkeys. And like they've sort of said it's like MK Ultra.
Yeah.
They've sort of said like, yeah, it was produced, but they haven't really like come out and said it. But they've definitely like gotten rid of like how they said it came about, like it was a monkey, because nobody fucked a monkey and got AIDS. Like, let's just be honest.
Yeah,
that's not what happened.
Yeah, that's just like one of those rumors just to cause division.
Agreed.
And like, hey, these black people coming from Africa are fucking monkeys. And it's like, stop that.
Right. That's exactly what it was. And it's the same with the inner city with crack. And, you know, the only reason, and like I said, there's tons of stories of like people that thought they worked for the CIA. When I say thought they worked for the CIA. Because the CIA, you don't work for the CIA. You work for like the Greenbrier Group, or like you work for like
I heard that fucking meth was getting rid of all the poor white trash that are the biggest supporters of like 2A and shit like that. So they introduced meth to get rid of them.
You're right. It's ridiculous.
Because it was like Dave Chappelle doing that bit where that was funny as shit, where he's talking about meth. He goes, "Hey, y'all remember when this stuff was happening to us?" And he's like, I'm with you guys. I don't give a fuck.
But like, it's true. It's totally true. Like, there's like, his name's White Boy Rick, and he's from Michigan.
Yep.
And he's like, he thought he was working with the CIA, and he thought he was part of like a special interest group that they were, and this is White Boy Rick, getting rid of like major drug dealers. So he taught them how to make crack, and when he taught them how to make crack, then there was like a crack epidemic. Because, like, it's straight chemistry. Like, nobody just came up with that.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, AIDS is the same thing. Like, that was completely invented
Mhm.
That was completely, in my opinion, that was completely invented. And why does somebody have it in the 60s?
Yeah, that's way back there. I mean,
That's crazy because honestly, patient zero was 80,
we
79, 80.
well, they said a few years later that HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, was discovered in this country after this case. But we remember from when we were young, Ryan White. Remember him?
It was the 80s, dude.
Remember Ryan White?
Of course.
I mean, everybody remembers him from our generation.
Me and you are 90s kids.
He got a blood transfusion. He got AIDS, and everybody was freaking out.
AIDS was the 80s, not the 70s, not even the not the late 70s, not the early 70s, definitely not the 60s.
Yeah.
So where'd the AIDS come from? I don't know. I don't know if that's like a population.
You think he was like a test run?
Maybe. Because, like, I do know that there's, like, populationists.
You think they were like, this 16-year-old black kid looks gay? Let's give him some AIDS.
Now they're like, this is how you fucking get rid of,
the
4.5 billion people.
Yeah.
Not darkies. People.
Just people in general.
In general, yeah.
I
think there is a big movement. There's a big movement to get rid of people.
Yep. Oh, I'm with you on that 100%.
I don't even think they care about the race.
I
really don't. I really don't think they care about the race. I think it's just like
they want compliancy. So my big conspiracy, my only big conspiracy theory that's like unproven, unfounded conspiracy theory is about groups like the CDC and stuff that want to call the population, because they've been preaching about overpopulation forever.
A long time.
They've told us about how it's going to get. And just for the record, if this is true, and it's reasonably true, if you took all the people in the world, right, and you gave them like a 6-foot square area to stand in, that entire population of the planet would fit in Rhode Island.
Yeah. I've already heard too, we have enough in the United States. We have enough land in the medians of our interstates.
Yeah.
To provide enough food for everyone in the world.
Right. And somebody else did one where they said,
and that makes sense.
Said if you lived, it was like if the entire population of the world lived with the same density as like New York City, they would all fit in like a couple states in the U.S. The entire world would.
Agreed.
So
that's why I said whenever we do the Area 51 shit, or like you drive out there, it's so wide open.
Yeah, there's so nothing forever.
Forever. It really is.
Yeah.
So and I don't know, man. I think that guy, he's like
test run.
Yeah, kind of.
Because I felt like this last bull crap with the COVID was like I think it was a test run. I think what they did was they put it was lethal. We all know people died, but they
were all big. They were all big or had problems or whatever.
Right. So like it was enough to scare people, so that you could what they got, the data that they got out of this was this: how many people willingly went and got vaccinated.
I know.
Right. And then you take the number of people who didn't, obviously non-compliant people that you don't want because they're not going to listen to you and comply with you. You want to get rid of those. So when you go to release the real deal, roundabouts what your numbers are going to be, because you know who will go out and get the vaccine and you know who won't. Numbers wise, they don't really give a shit what you do, but it does help that the non-compliant people are getting gone, So I think it was like, I think this was a test run. I think they've been running test runs for years, and eventually we're going to get one where it's going to be like what you would expect when you would race out and get a vaccine. People just dropping dead on the street and blood pouring out their face, or worse. So
I don't know. It's weird to me. It's weird that this guy dies of AIDS 10 years before.
Mm-hmm.
That just, like I said, they've already said not from monkeys, and they don't really know where it originated from. They don't even think it originated from Africa, which is crazy,
right?
Because that was what they said all along.
Yeah. They said it all the time. I'm like,
and now they're like, yeah, probably not from Africa, which is crazy to me. Because my entire life, I grew up thinking it was a monkey from Africa that started AIDS.
Yeah.
And it's not at all.
Shit. When I was growing up, I thought all kinds of stuff that ain't right no more. Like dinosaurs dragging their tail on the ground.
That's why I brought up the crack. The reason I brought up the crack is because they're like, yeah, that started in the hood. I'm like, and then I got older and I'm like, well, that's a smart motherfucker that can put some chemistry together and figure out that baking soda could carry cocaine longer. And then I learned about it, and I'm like, I didn't have it at all.
But don't underestimate that, because hillbilly engineering and Afro engineering go hand in hand. Those motherfuckers are ingenious sometimes. When you take everything from somebody and they got to fucking make it on their own, they figure shit out, man. It's kind of crazy, and
I agree with that.
The backwoods hillbillies, some of the shit they come up with.
Mountain Dew is invented as a chaser for bourbon, but but crack just appeared, and all of a sudden there was crack. Right. And all of a sudden there was AIDS. So I don't know. This is one we should probably revisit. I
seen a dude take a paper clip, stick it in one side of a light socket, and then take another paper clip and stick it in the other side of the light socket. And then he rolled up a piece of toilet paper and he dropped it on the two barbs at the same time, and it fucking lit on fire, and he lit a cigarette off it.
That's impressive.
I was like, wow. I wouldn't even fucking tried that. You know what I mean?
That's impressive.
Because you have to have some fucking understanding of electricity.
Yeah.
I don't have any. I'm like, that's my weakness.
AIDS is not that.
No.
Right.
There's weird. Nobody was cooking that one up in the backwoods.
Somebody had to generate that. In my opinion,
that's a lab.
Yeah. All right, that's the first. That's
the first 25.
25. All right, cool.
We solved a lot of problems for a lot of states.
We did.
A few of them were like, just get over it, man. It's been a long time.
It was the 40s. What are you going to do?
You really haven't had anything weird happen since 1876? All right, fuck it.
All right, that's the first 25. I'm Anthony.
I'm Brandon.
This is Everything That's Weird. For show notes and merchandise, go to www.everythingthat'sweird.com. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And be sure to like, subscribe, and review anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Thank you for listening. See you next time.